Rost is always a fan favorite. Every single time we've had him on, I've gotten so many people afterwards. Oh, where was that? Where can I find more? Who was he? Remind me who. It's Rob Staton, BBC sports journalist and author of Seahawks Draft Blog, joining us on the Emerald Queen Casino Sportsbook Hotline. We have a lot to cover with you, Rob. How's it going, first of all?
Fantastic. Yeah, things really good here in the UK. How are things in Seattle? Everything all right?
Everything all right. Weather getting a little bit better. Still rainy, still gross. I'm sure you're familiar.
They got the same weather, right?
Same weather.
Same weather. Yeah. Exact same situation over here right now.
We're all in the same boat. So before we get to the draft, which we are eager to talk to you about, I am going to start with free agency. The Seahawks made... I think, I will call signing Sam Darnold an aggressive move, going after DeMarcus Lawrence an aggressive move, still holding, back on offensive line moves. What have you made of their, approach so far?
I like it. I think they've had a good start to free agency. I think Sam Darnold enables them to get a bit cheaper at quarterback, a bit younger. You get a third-round pick into the mix. I think there's a pretty similar quality to both players, Geno Smith and Sam Darnold. So I think that's a good move. I think getting Ernest Jones and Jaron Reed back was a big deal. I think with the cap space they had available, why not go and sign Marcus Lawrence and Cooper Kupp? These are not high-risk moves with consequences. They haven't missed out on anybody else for signing those players. And then with the O-line, this is the kind of the opinion I've taken on this. Everybody wants them to fix the offensive line. I want that. You want that. John Schneider wants that. But you are not going to fix the offensive line by signing the O-line version of Jerome Baker and Tyrell Dodson. You have got to sign the right players. And they clearly identified Will Fries as potentially the right player. The Minnesota Vikings offered him a contract that no other free agent at any position has been offered, a 5-year deal. They didn't want to have a medical. They were prepared to sign him to that. Kudos to the Vikings. Congratulations to Will Fries. I don't blame the Seahawks for not making that move. So they're going to have to look at the draft. They're going to have to see what else is out there. It's a big ask to get this done, but supply does not meet demand when it comes to the offensive line in the NFL.
Rob, at the beginning of last year, a lot of people had the trio of DK, Lockett, and JSN as like top 3, top 4 trios in the NFL when it comes to the wideout position. Now there's a different trio. JSN has moved up to the 1, obviously MSV, and then you have Cooper Kupp. How do you view this trio, and where do you think they rank roughly when you look at the NFL?
I think they're going to be good enough for what they need. They've said it a lot, haven't they, since Mike Macdonald came in, that they're going to be a team that wants to run the football. They're going to use play action. They're going to use this wide zone. I think they're going to try and get the tight ends a lot more involved. How many years have we been saying that we want the Seahawks to do that? I think it's probably going to happen this year, and they may well take another tight end in the draft with the idea of doing that. So I think they've got the weapons that they need to run the system that they want to run. And I think with Jackson Smith in Jigba and Cooper Kupp working together, I think Cooper Kupp is going to be the best influence on Jackson to help him take the next step in his career, to learn from a player who has achieved so much in the NFL. I think Marquez Valdes-Scantling is going to give them a deep threat. Was really impressed with what he did with the New Orleans Saints. They're going to draft somebody as well. They're probably going to add some speed in the draft in the first 4 rounds. So I think it's good. I'm happy with it. I'm not concerned about the skill positions. I think they've got some good players still. I think the main thing to make this offense really sort of ramp up to the next level is to draft a couple of really good offensive linemen now.
Speaking of drafting a couple of really good offensive linemen, it's something that I know John Schneider has received some criticism for before. They've taken a lot of shots, but haven't landed many of them. Feel free, Rob, to expand this beyond just the offensive line, but what do you make of John Schneider as a team builder, both the good and the bad?
I think in a free agency sense, he's not had a lot of success over the years. You have to go back probably to 2013 to the last time they had a home run veteran market offseason. And it's a long time ago. And now he needs to have a better offseason in terms of the veteran market. I think he is having that so far this year. And then with the draft, I think he's done a very good job of identifying players that are good players, getting high football character players, avoiding some of the risks that come with poor character and not good football character, going with best player available, not reaching for need. I think he's done a good job with that. And it's enabled them to accumulate a lot of talented players, but not necessarily create the kind of team with the vision that they want to be. And I think that's the next step now. It's about honing it in so that if you want to be a trenches team, draft for the trenches, to build that kind of roster. I think he's going to do that now. And I think this draft works very well for that policy, to try and draft some offensive linemen, to get some more defensive linemen, and to be the kind of team that John Schneider and Mike McDonald say they want to be.
Hey, going into the season last year, we felt that DB room was deep, right? And now guys are getting picked up, and it's looking a little thin. Obviously, your starters are still there. The Hawks have been connected to Nick, the safety out of South Carolina. How important is it, do you think, that they draft at this position? And what do you think about that room coming into Spoon's third year and Reek's fourth year for him? It's wild.
Yeah, well, Reek Woolen being out of contract in a year kind of makes cornerback somewhat of a priority. So I think they're probably going to draft someone at some stage. And I think the options from round 3, round 4 are good at cornerback. So I think that could be an area that they look at. Nick Emenwari is going to have an official 30 visit. He's one of the 3 names that have been confirmed for an official 30 visit so far. He's going to be an option. I also think Malachi Starks is somebody who could be a real option for the Seahawks. Can I tell you a little story about him?
Please.
So his position coach at Georgia gained a little weight and decided he was going to start running in the morning to lose that weight. And Malachi Starks says to him, "What time are you running, coach?" And he says, I'll be there at the facility at 6 a.m. And Starks is waiting for him at the facility at 5:30 to go for the run with him. And then the next day, and Starks is there every single day. On the 4th day, the coach was tired and he decided, I'm not going to run today. Who calls him at 6 a.m.? Malachi Starks. Coach, where are you? Teams are going to love this guy. His football character, his application, the professionalism. And then you see him on the tape. Fluid mover in the open field, versatile defensive back. He can hit. He just had some sloppy tape at the end of 2024. But, he's a player, along with Nick Emenwari, that we should probably keep an eye on for the secondary position.
Kind of a weird question. Is there a bad decision at number 18?
That is an unbelievable question, because there probably is. Listen, I don't think that there are any quarterbacks in this draft worthy of the 18th overall pick. But who am I to say if John Schneider, this is the guy who drafted Russell Wilson. This is the GM who reportedly had the foresight to understand what Patrick Mahomes was going to be and Josh Allen. If he decides, I'm going to take Jackson Dart or Tyler Shook at 18, I'm not going to hammer him for that. I'm going to see what happens with that. But I'm not sure that that's necessarily the best call for Seattle in round 1. That might be something where if you get a 50 and 52 and there's a quarterback that you like, you take them there. Maybe in round 3. I'm not sure I'd be doing that at number 18.
Hawks have been known to have a stable full of running backs. They got 3 of them right now. We saw Halani for a little bit last year as well. This draft is deep when it comes to RBs. It might be the deepest position in the draft. Do you expect them to draft an RB, and do you think they should?
Yeah, I think they probably should, because Ken Walker's a free agent in 12 months, and let's see what happens with his future. And Zach Charbonnet is already well into his rookie contract. Now, no one thinks they should go and draft, Quinshon Junkins in the 2nd round or Travion Henderson in the 1st. But I think when you get into sort of day 3, maybe even sort of the back end of round 3, there could be some really good value there. Some players that I like, Jaquindon Jackson at Arkansas, he's probably going to be there in the later rounds. Can you get him and bring him in and just sort of add him to the mix? He's somebody who I think can potentially start in the NFL. Do you want to get somebody who's a little bit different to what you've already got? Brashard Smith, perhaps, from SMU. Get him in, who's just a very different running back. And then you've got a whole bunch of players like Josh Williams at LSU is a player that I think teams will like. Cal Monangai at Rutgers. There are loads of running backs. You are going to be able to get one, even if it's in round 6, you're going to be able to get one who you think he is worth having at training camp this year. So I think they probably will draft one at some point, but I don't think it's going to be an early round pick this year.
Is there a player in this draft you absolutely love and you're like 90% sure the Seahawks aren't going to get him? And I don't mean because it's like not that this player would be it, but like a Cam Ward. I mean because let's say at 18, it's just not going to be a position of value and you're sure that he'll go before then. But maybe a player that you're like, I don't think he's going to be a Seahawk, but God, would I lose my mind.
Wow, there's about 6 players that I could say
Sure.
would fit into that. Do you know what? There's one player who I thought there's no chance he was going to last 18. I think he's the 6th best player in the draft based on the tape, and that was Jahad Campbell, the linebacker at Alabama. And then it's come out today that he's going to have labrum surgery, and that's quite a big deal. He could be out for a long time. He might have to have a redshirt year, and he's now gone from somebody I think was working his way into the top 10 who could be there at 18. And this is a force impact defender. He can play conventional linebacker. He can rush off the edge. He doesn't tackle. He hammers people, and he like leaves a bruise, he leaves a mark. So it's the kind of player, old school mentality with a new school versatility and athleticism to his play at linebacker. So he was somebody that if you'd have asked me that question yesterday, I would have given him as the answer. But because of this injury issue, maybe he will be there at 18, and then you've got to do a lot of research on the medicals and wonder whether you want to take that risk.
What do you think the potential is for this defense? Stacey and I have been just raving about them. We think they can really. They're a good defense, above average now, but they can be, I think, one of top 10 defense in this league. What do you think their potential is?
When Mike McDonald took over the Baltimore Ravens defense, I think they were 27th or something like that in the NFL. In his first year as defensive coordinator, they were the 8th best defense. And in his second year, they were the 1st. So I think there's a chance that the Seahawks take a similar pathway here. And they've brought in some good players already. They've retained some good players. We saw what happened when Ernest Jones came into play in this defense. Now getting DeMarcus Lawrence's leadership, his ability to defend the run, he will provide some pass rush. A draft to come where you have 5 picks in the top 100. They're not all going to be offensive linemen. There are going to be some that are spent on the defense as well. They have got a chance to have a top 5 defense this year. I'm really, really believing that. The coaching staff that they've got, the personnel that they've already got, you chuck a couple of good draft picks into that defense as well. They've got a chance to be something special. So I'm very optimistic about this defense.
Now, your answer may lie on that side of the ball for this next question. But, Rob, we brought you on to talk about the draft, to talk about some of the new players that have been signed in free agency. That being said, you're very familiar with the Seahawks. And is there a player, perhaps a young player, that you think, I think there's untapped potential here, and I am very curious to see what his 2025 season looks like?
Yeah, I think Byron Murphy's probably the one that springs to mind, because when you sort of watched him, like I'm not in Seattle, I'm in the other end of the world, but when you sort of look at the footage of Byron Murphy in training camp, I know what we were talking about a year ago. You're saying this guy's got the body shape of kind of a bit like Aaron Donald. And he's not going to be Aaron Donald because he wasn't Aaron Donald on tape for Texas. But then you sort of watch him and his role, he was asked to do a lot of run defense. It was he was having to do a lot of the heavy lifting for maybe some of the rush work that Seattle did. I'm so interested to see what he's going to be in year 2. Because if you look at players like Grady Jarrett, who he was compared to when he was coming into the league, Grady Jarrett took a year or 2 to become really good. Quinnen Williams at the Jets took a good couple of years to become the Quinnen Williams we know now. So I'm thinking maybe year 2 from Byron Murphy. Year 3, he could be something pretty special. So I'm very excited to see what he can do next year.
Rob, my last question it's a personal question, honestly, because, I grew up obviously in California, and where I'm from, a lot of cats don't play soccer. And I decided to play soccer, and I ran with it. And I think it's fascinating, and it's fun just to talk to someone with a different accent, with a different view of the game, and just get their insights to this. I think it's amazing. Man, how did you get into football? What was your journey?
So I used to live in Vancouver in Canada, and everybody I used to work with, I used to kind of tease them a little bit and say, American football is just rugby with pads on. And we don't even wear pads in England. We just get out there and we play rugby. And we went to Seattle. I watched a Mariners game. They lost 10-0 to the Blue Jays. And we walked past Quest Field, as it was known at the time. And I said to my girlfriend, my wife, I said, we've got to come back here. We've got to go to this stadium and see a football game. So we came back, Monday Night Football, 2006, Packers in the snow. As soon as I walked into that stadium, I thought, this is for me. This is pretty special. And just everything about that night. I have been obsessed with the Seahawks ever since. I've not missed a game. I love everything about the sport. I still like my English football as well, and that is what the day job is. But, I can't get enough of this sport and the Seahawks in particular. So it's like my main passion, and it really, really annoys my wife and my friends that I dedicate so much of my energy and time to it.
Is there a cultural thing that felt different about watching a football game here? Was there something where you thought oh my God, Americans? Crazy.
Do you know what the one thing it was? It was the connection between the team and the fans. You just don't have that over here as much. When they raised that 12 flag for the first time, and then one of the players, I can't remember who it was, it's a long time ago now, came running out of the tunnel holding a massive 12 flag, and all the fans were into it. It was great to sort of turn around and see Packers fans and Seahawks fans sat together. You can't do that over here in England because they'd be fighting each other. So everything about the experience, the game day experience, people were coming up and talking to me and my wife like we knew anything about the Seahawks that day. And I just felt like it kind of belonged. Like it was just a really cool atmosphere. So I've been back many, many times since, and I'm hoping to get over there again this year to see a game.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, man. That's cool.
Yeah, we
Thanks,
hope
guys.
you're able to come back over. If you do, I hope we can snag you for a talk or, get some of your insight on what this team is going to look like in a couple months. If you guys want more insight from Rob, make sure you check out Seahawks Draft Blog. Amazing stuff there all the time. Rob Staton, thank you so much, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Anytime, guys. Thank you.